Hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Tonight, we got a special program for you all today. It is a little bit of an impromptu change up that we had because we had a slight change in plans. Emergency came up on the planned scheduled live stream for tonight. But sometimes it's a blessing in disguise because they're going to promote this interview even harder now. So that's good news that the largest pro-life YouTube channel that calls themselves abolitionists, but I respect that. But the largest in that category is going to be promoting this interview even harder is good news. That's a blessing in disguise. And also, what we're talking about tonight is kind of the death of conservatism, and a lot of it's very timely. So it might be a little out of date to put it off a week to talk about it next week, but now we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to do a not terribly long live stream tonight, fortunately or unfortunately, because my wife has to get up early tomorrow. So, with that said, we're going to keep it nice and smooth tonight. Even though we started late, we're going to finish early. It's just like give you ready for a Friday work day, I guess. So, how are you doing tonight, Anthony? On short
All is
notice.
well. No Friday work day for me.
Okay, well, that's just showing off. So, with that said, we're going to be talking about conservatism tonight and sort of some death spells that it's in. I got a hot take that I want to drop, but I also want to talk about a bigger picture item that has come up recently because Erickson went viral lately, and he's getting dunked on appropriately. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about transvestite conservatism, and we're going to talk about the Blaze for a second. I have a hot take on the Blaze that I want to drop, and I think that's my rundown in my head for tonight. Your cringe warning is in effect. We got some cringe to show you tonight. But first, I want to let you know Evangelical Dark Web is a Christian news gathering and commentary ministry. You can support our work over at evangelicaldarkweb.org/join. That's linked in the description below. And we do have an upcoming book, Winning Not Winsome. Major progress on that has been made this week. And I got a phone call with the publisher tomorrow. And hopefully everything's going to be moving. And after, by the time we get to the next live stream, I should have maybe a release date, and it won't be that far away. So, because I'm not, I've already delayed enough, so I'm not going to be delaying this any further. Who knows? Maybe it's going to be out by the end of May. Wouldn't that be nice? Before the Southern Baptist Convention, which is kind of like a Super Bowl event for, a lot of evangelicals. So, with that said, let's get on to our first topic. And I believe our first topic is going to be Erickson, which is a very good way to kick off this live stream, is to talk about a video that he did recently that I guess was also based off a column that he did at National Review, which, I have another hot take on National Review. I do not think that the National Review is ever really good. I am not a respecter of Barry Goldwater or William F. Buckley, because Barry Goldwater hated Christians. He did not want Christians involved in politics. He didn't like the idea of Christians being involved in politics. So, not a fan of him. He has some, quotes about, Christians and how bad they are and how he doesn't want them involved in politics. William F. Buckley, he lied through his teeth to protect the magic bullet theory, and I just can't respect the guy who does that. So, those are some of my hot takes already for tonight. While I get this loaded, this is the clip from Erickson. And it's from his show. So with that said, Erickson, he's a radio broadcaster. I think he's, moderately successful in the field, especially on local radio and stuff. And this is him. He also now writes for National Review, I guess. So here he is. This is not the least cringy thing that we're going to deal with tonight, by the way.
There is some weird movement happening within conservatism where a lot of people who were conservative suddenly aren't, and they don't want to give up the name conservative. They want to redefine what conservatism is, and I think that's a bad thing. Limited government and free markets are a good thing, and yet we have a number of people at conservative think tanks in Washington, D.C. now who want government control. They want their government to control it. Now, I need you to understand the problem here. If you limit the size and scope of the federal government, it makes it harder for big government to do things. If instead you decide that you want to be in charge of the government and use the government for your purposes, you're going to set precedents that the other side will use when they come to power. And ultimately, there's no such thing as a permanent political majority in the United States of America. So if you grow the government for your purposes and set the precedent.
So I got to pause right there. Is what he's saying is that it's impossible for there to be a one-party majority in the United States? Because last I checked, Roosevelt won 4 elections in a row.
I mean, I'm more baffled.
And then Truman won, right? In 1948?
Well, not really. Well, yes and no. I mean, because he kind of inherited the presidency.
Yeah, but then he won in 1948.
True. I'm more baffled by the
5 straight Democrat terms. That was a one-party country for a while.
That it was.
And the Republicans, after they lost the House of Representatives in 1936 or whatever, Hoover, and the disastrous, policies in the Great Depression and all, Republicans didn't have like a substantial number in the House. Like in 2010, they set like a record that was, going back to like Coolidge. They hadn't had that many congressmen. So even under Ronald Reagan, the Republican Party, we've always had lower registration than the Democrats. The Democrats have always had a huge advantage when it comes to partisan politics, and Republicans have always had to win because of a coalition of independents. In fact, the Republicans have outperformed when it comes to presidential elections compared to their size in comparison to the Democratic Party, which, they've actually underperformed in presidential elections compared to how they really could have had the tools to dominate the map. And for the House, the Senate, I mean, they still dominate the Senate now compared to how, they have Montana, West Virginia, and Ohio.
Well, I mean, they won't have at least one of those because I think Manchin's not returning.
But yeah, Republicans now outperform on the gubernatorial level, but that's kind of about it. But anyway,
well, can we just go back to his whole
the idea that
if we use power, that power will be used against us. So therefore, we should just do nothing and fight with our hands tied behind our back, while the Democrats actually are using the power that he is saying that the Republicans should not use at all. So the power already exists. The question is whether you're going to wield it. And this is Lord of the Rings politics, where no one can wield the ring.
No one can wield the ring. Yeah.
No one is worthy of the ring.
No. And that works in Lord of the Rings, but that's not a good mentality to have in actual politics, because even the notion that absolute power corrupts absolutely is kind of nonsensical on the surface of it, because monarchs back then did not have absolute authority. They had high crown authority, and even that was less tyrannical than any democracy or republic that's ever.
Years.
Yeah. So, name a monarchy that was more tyrannical than any republic in the last 100 years. You can't.
But yeah, he's basically saying that Republicans shouldn't even use the power that we have. We shouldn't do lawfare against the Democrats.
Right. And that's just a losing mentality as it is. But it's just the part where it's like, we will, the United States doesn't work like a one-party system.
Well,
but it's conceivable that we could.
Well, I mean, uniparty.
And Washington
we just saw it on Saturday. The uniparty, 300 votes in the House on a spending bill.
Yeah. In U.S. Congress, at the minimum, we have a one-party system. So the idea that can't be nationalized, I just think it's laughable. And, even looking at the Electoral College these days is pretty grim. We could very well be in for a very one-party system moving on out, forcing people to balkanize, which is good, by the way. I don't care what Michael O'Fallon says or Erick Erickson has something to say about balkanization as well. So I'm gonna let him finish.
Of that growth, when you're out of power and the people you don't like are in power, they're going to use your precedents and the government you grew, and they're going to use it against you. Sadly, some conservative groups in Washington, D.C. have decided that the federal government can set about some sort of justly ordered society. Your view of a justly ordered society, I assure you, is completely different from the view of pro-transgender progressives who want a justly ordered society that is going to come after you for not supporting transgenderism. And yet, some of these conservative groups have decided they're going to grow government to justly order society. And you do need to understand, you're not going to hold on to power in this country forever, short of abandoning this country, short of abandoning the American Republic as it currently exists, which I think is the subtle undercurrent of some of these guys. They're not really fans of the American Republic and would like to seize power and hold power.
So that is Erick Erickson. I'll let you go first.
I mean, let's be honest. The Republic has itself failed. I mean, we can just go back to democracy. There is a failed form of government. And we are I mean, again, he's, for starters, not acknowledging that politics is zero sum. And two, the Democrats are wielding power. But if the Republicans don't counteract that by wielding power of their own, then the Democrats continue to win. This is just, it's the whole progressivism, or Republicans are just progressive driving the speed limit because they're not actually making gains on the other side. They're just stopping the bleeding. And when the Democrats gain power, they poke another hole.
Yeah, I mean, the only issues that the Republicans have meaningfully gained ground on is gun issue. That is definitely one issue where Republicans have meaningfully gained ground. You can't even say, abortion would be one of those issues because, man, are the Republicans quick to give that ground right back.
Yeah.
We just saw that in Arizona this week, and I totally ratioed a Arizona state senator because he wanted to lie about being pro-life when he was most certainly not.
As he's about to sell out his state or something.
I want to read Erick Erickson's tweet because I honestly did not watch his video before this live stream. So a growing number of individuals on the right are turning their back on conservatism without giving up the label. They've abandoned the three-legged stool of fiscal conservatism, traditional values, and a foreign policy approach of peace through strength. So let's break that first part down. So he's talking about the three-legged stool, which is, I believe, William F. Buckley came up with that.
Okay, fiscal conservatism. Well, that's been abandoned because of Ronald Reagan. Let's just be honest. Reagan literally created the deficit spending cycle and kicked off the financial collapse of the United States. He pretty much solidified that.
Because you can also blame Richard Nixon for the gold standard.
Well, yes, we can do that too. But Ronald Reagan basically said you're going to have entitlements, you're going to have tax cuts, and you're going to have defense spending. He basically said you're going to get all three of those things, which is an impossibilty. You can only have two at most. And now we have $30 trillion in debt, and cutting taxes on corporations did not strengthen jobs in America. It just resulted in stock buybacks, which expanded the wealth gap, which is not a good thing. But yeah, fiscal conservatism has been out the windows because of Ronald Reagan and neoconservatism. Traditional values, I mean, basically he's saying that we shouldn't fight to instill traditional values via legislation because that's wielding power. So
yeah, he's a hypocrite on that one because, first of all, Erick Erickson is a liberal Southern Baptist.
And foreign policy, if you want to project strength, then close the border. That is the weakness. There's no amount of foreign policy boondoggles. There's no bombs we can drop that would project strength that overcomes the weakness that is an open border.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate, but they're not going to do that at all because again, Reagan did the amnesty and that wrecked California for good. I've been seeing a lot of love for Richard Nixon lately. Despite the whole gold standard thing. It's kind of interesting.
Nixon was a noticer.
And he also, took Vietnam seriously because he inherited a war that was unpopular and said, let's actually bomb our way out of it and bomb our way to the negotiating table. That was a lot more effective. And then, Gerald Ford came in or Gerald Ford came and then went, or Gerald Ford came in and then the Democrats in Congress kind of sabotaged how that went. But it was a precarious position from the beginning. So Richard Nixon was a Quaker? I'm hearing that for the first time. I've never heard that before.
Well,
so I kind of consider Dwight Eisenhower to be the last Christian president.
and speaking of which, he was against dropping the nuclear bomb, or the atomic bomb.
Which I still support the atomic bomb usage because we were at war, because we declared war on the Japanese.
I don't question I don't say it's immoral. I just think it's unnecessary. It was unnecessary.
Well,
that's just we could have negotiated peace long before the war ended.
No, I think the thing that was unnecessary was for Douglas MacArthur to say, because Emperor Hirohito was ready to convert to Christianity.
Yeah.
And Japan was ready to convert to a Christian nation, but MacArthur's like, no, we can't do that. Higher principles. And, religious freedom and all. It's like we literally could have converted Japan. We could have made Japan, the kingdom of Jerusalem but in Tokyo. That would have been awesome. But instead, we didn't do that. And I think disarming the Japanese was probably a mistake. It worked for the first 10 years. But let's be real. Then you let China, as soon as China becomes a rising power, it was time to arm Japan again. But, short-sighted, I guess. But I get it. That being said, Erickson, very cringeworthy, and the whole three-legged stool thing, it doesn't work. It's not popular with voters because it doesn't resonate with their core.
No, it would be popular if they actually did it. Like the Republican Party doesn't actually stand for any of those planks.
Not on a national level, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I think you can see it on a state level. You can see two of those things.
Like they think
you can't see the peace through strength on a state level.
Well, they think arming Ukraine is strength. It's not. It's weakness. Because as long as you have a porous border, it doesn't matter what bombs you drop elsewhere in the world. You still look weak.
So,
like if we secured the border and abandoned Ukraine, Putin would actually have more respect for the United States.
So the elite says Erickson is literally doing but if we use government stone toss meme, and if you're familiar with stone toss, that's a good follow. Even on the Telegram, if you're on Telegram, good Telegram to look up, or Twitter account, or wherever you're on social media. Stone toss is hilarious.
I mean, his entire talking point is like, what year did you get your talk? What year did you stop updating your operating system?
Yeah, he's sounding like a Windows Vista right now. So, and then he continues to say, instead, they want to harness the power of federal government to punish the left and implement their preferred policy. Yes.
Well, yes. This is the entire point of politics. It's friend-enemy distinction. Punish your enemies, reward your friends.
Erickson can confirm. I can confirm that, and it's based.
And what do the Republicans do? We punish our friends. We help our enemies. And that's the whole Columbia University thing that's happening right now. Let's help our enemies who are having a civil war right now. There's a civil war on the left between their donors and their voters.
Right.
And we're basically trying to intervene in that.
Because they pushed anti-whiteness, and now that anti-whiteness, a lot of those, Palestinians and blacks and Mexicans aren't going to recognize Jews as non-white. So total backfire. You love to see that. But Greg Abbott, does not like to see that.
But yeah,
he's sending either National or State Guard to the University of Texas, Austin, instead of to the border where they're actually needed.
Yeah, I mean, this is politics 101, and Republicans fail at the most fundamental level.
So,
and again, just as Putin explained thoroughly with his Tucker Carlson, the West made a mistake, and he's not going to beg them to come back to the negotiating table. And the left's making a mistake, or they're showing huge weakness. They're faltering. They're splintering on a hard line, and the right is just like, okay, yeah, we'll help. we'll intervene rather than let you guys fight it out and become weaker.
So first, I want to say smash that like button. Second, I want to say, what's ironic? APAC, right? American Israel Political Affairs Committee or whatever it's called, or Political Action Committee. They give more money to Democrats than to Republicans. Did you know that? It's like 60% or 63% Democrats. The rest is Republicans or independents.
It wouldn't surprise me
or
just because
nonpartisan.
of if they vote, if they do incumbents, that wouldn't surprise me.
Well, yeah, it's 99.7 or something like that percent is donated to incumbents. Like, that is how, this organization wins, and they back winners. But it's just amazing. It's like, wow, this whole pack controls the right. It's very influential in right-wing or national politics, but they give more money to the Democrats. What's the point in that? But that.
I mean, it goes back to Republicans hate their base,
and that's the more conservative of the the Israel lobby. Because you got the United Democracy Fund, which mostly gives to Democrats. So that's more of the left wing one. So that is Erickson just being cringe. The dude is Windows Vista politics, and it shows. It's kind of pathetic and laughable to watch. I do have, I guess that concludes the Erickson segment. The next thing I have is tranny conservatism, or transgender transvestite conservatism. So I got a couple choice videos. I'm not sure which one's in order, but I believe, because I screen capped these a while ago. And, they've been sitting. I've had this topic for a while that I've prepped, but now things have gotten more prepped. So that being said, here we go. This is clip 1. This is from the Jubilee YouTube channel. They did this like a few months ago, or several months ago at this point, maybe 6 months ago. They did this thing where they did, conservative versus liberal transvestites. And it is as you think it is. And you can guess who's the number one star in that show.
Blair. Or
Yeah.
Rudy or whatever.
I don't know the dead name. But anyway, this is exactly how you think it is. And it's kind of hilarious. I forget whether I sped it up as I was screen capping it or not. So here we go.
When they do so, they typically don't medically transition.
Right.
And when you do so, that at that point, it's a costume.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Like-
it's gender nonconformity, right? And so
Because they can
Blair's
take
saying-
this off. I can't take this off.
Yeah, as Blair's saying, we look at gender nonconformity, which used to be okay. You can wear what you want. You can present however you want, but it doesn't make you something different. You can't, as Blair was saying, it comes out of queer theory, which is postmodern neo-Marxism, which means that there's no such thing as absolute truth. They don't believe there's truth, so it kind of erodes the structure of society. And it's actually really regressive in a lot of ways, because you end up getting it to where it's literally based off of stereotypes, which we've tried to for so long get rid of. Like, it's okay to be gender nonconforming male or gender nonconforming female, and that didn't make you non-binary. It didn't make you trans.
When I meet a trans person, right, like a trans woman, a trans man, there is an inherent camaraderie. Like when you mentioned, I can't take this off, part of me almost got a little bit emotional. I know it's hard to believe people think I have emotions, but I really do. And because I saw you in that moment, and I said, you know what, we are similar in that way. We may be different in other ways. We don't know each other very well, but we have that. When I talk to or I'm around a non-binary person, it doesn't really click, it doesn't connect because it is so different. So I think that's inherently, I should be able to see some semblance of my own issue within that person, and I don't when they're non-binary at all.
And so I have no issue with non-binary people. I just don't think that we're the same.
Yeah, same.
And so when like I was saying before, like when our acceptance rate has completely been destroyed because these people are initiating violence in our name, they're gonna self-ID out of the category, and then we're gonna be the ones left holding the bag.
Yeah, it's just, if sex is a binary and you're neither of those, then you're not trans.
Hello.
So that was cringe, right? Like
I mean,
I
my
said,
head is
I said full cringe warning at the beginning, and that was a bunch of transvestite are arguing that people who identify as non-binary are not also the same category as them, which is very nonsensical. And I believe I don't know if the next clip I have involves the non-binary dude in this in that segment, but those were the conservatives,
like
the so-called
the conservative
conservatives.
Buffalo Bill.
Yeah, the conservative Buffalo Bill. Like, yes, like that was supposed to be the conservative, because they all basically, if you watch that video, and I kind of wonder who owns Jubilee. Like, is it in the name? Is it on the nose? Because seems like a reference to like a biblical Old Testament category. But in any way, they're trying to push it that is conservatism, or that those people represent conservatism. And it's just kind of laughable if that's conservatism, I don't want anything. I don't want any part of that. So that they're literally arguing that people who are the same as them are not the same as them because of a slightly different label.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the freaks are mad at the other freaks.
And you know what the only difference between like the transvestite and the non-binary is effort and self-identification. But other than that, effort.
Because I'm assuming that's a woman that's like dressing herself as a man.
Because remember, the first person who talked referred to it as a costume. It's a costume. Like, what? Do you have self-awareness? So that was the conservatism side of that. I do have one more cringe clip. I think it might be slightly longer, but I'm not sure. So I believe this is where we have an interaction, I think, with the other side, or it's when they're talking about the bathroom situation, because they talk about that apparently. So yeah, let me play that for you real quick.
I know what we're talking about.
And so we're showing that these types of things do actually cause harm to trans people. So if you're looking at it at a trans lens and to say, what are we doing? We need to combat that stuff and come together to combat that
It does
stuff.
not encompass the entire trans experience.
No,
and
you're
that's all
right.
I just want to say.
Yeah, I think I see a lot of different points from everybody here. Honestly, like I can understand like how some women may feel unsafe with men in the restroom. Men, when I say men, I mean men. I'm not talking about trans women. So being a non-binary person that sometimes has the choice to either go into a men's restroom looking like this. You can look at me looking like this.
It's just interesting. I thought this was a trans debate. That's what I
don't
thought.
even.
Non-binary people
Non-binary people fall
the
under the
trans
trans
experience.
umbrella.
No, they don't.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe you could educate yourself a little bit on that.
I think I
and
could
maybe
educate
then you would figure out.
I think I could educate you.
What
right?
the reality is.
I'm
and what
sure there's
trans actually
a
means.
non-binary Jubilee episode.
Wow, it's
Well, because it's not a debate about who is really trans and who is not.
It can be.
We're talking about restrooms. As a trans non-binary person, when I go into a place that only has men's and women's restrooms, and I'm dressed like this, my choice to go into the men's restroom at that point puts me in danger.
6 years ago when I was transitioned almost 8 years ago, but 6 years ago, it was never an issue for me to use the women's room. Girls would literally drag me in there with them and say, girl, you need to be in our bathroom. And I was like, I felt uncomfortable back then. I don't pass. I know I don't pass, so that's a me problem. And I'm not gonna turn my fear of being attacked in the men's room into a woman's problem. It's still a me problem, so I need to work on myself. And it sucks. Does it suck? Yes, it sucks. I don't pass. I know I don't pass. But I still respect women enough, and some trans people aren't capable of handling themselves against a man, but I am confident in my ability to do that. And not everybody can, I get that. But it's just now, 6 years ago, I used to use the women's room. Now I don't, because women have spoke out. They've come out and said, we're not comfortable. There's too many self-ID'd people out there just taking advantage. And I choose to use the men's room to protect them.
I can definitely.
All righty. Were you prepared for that?
I couldn't stop laughing at the clown.
But he's
That was
literally dressed
hysterical.
like he's dressed in women's clothes, and they're like, "You're not one of us." Like,
I mean,
what's
again,
the difference?
he's talking about bathrooms, and I'm just looking at his earrings, and they look like clothespins, and like I use
He
those to
is
fix my
culturally
toilet.
he is culturally appropriating those hoop earrings. Like, how did he not get called out for that? I guess it is looking pretty pasty on that panel. And then the one guy's like, "I don't pass, and I know it, and I can handle a man in a fight," is basically what he was saying. The elite is trying to resist the urge to Fed post. We all are trying to resist the urge to get banned off of YouTube for this one. Like, wow, that was cringy, and just that feisty debate, which by the way continues. Blair cannot keep it polite, and can't have the self-awareness to see that y'all the same, y'all in the same category. But that is the state of conservatism right now. Like that is being represented or being promoted from the media as the conservative side on this issue. Now, usually the whole Jubilee thing doesn't go very well for conservatives, as I've noticed. Like even on like they did the pro-life versus pro-abortion thing, and the pro-lifers lost that debate because they don't really believe that abortion is murder because they're feminist. So we're going to talk about that when we get Abolitionist Rising on the channel.
Ironically, they get like Pearl. I think Pearl Davis actually made her bones on Jubilee, or that was one of her early appearances.
Are you serious?
Yes. Or it was Vice, but it's the same thing. As far as like one of those panel discussions. So yeah, I mean, they don't always get their best, which is why someone like Pearl can like come out a little brighter, a little bit better than the others.
Oh, for sure. I mean, if you're, the least, hoey person on the the whatever podcast, you can get away with a lot more, I guess. I mean, I still got more cringe to share. We're actually going through this pretty quickly, all things considered. Let's catch up on some chat real quick. Yellow Moth says, "Remember, boys, if she has an apple, she has a banana." So, sage advice. Formosan Black Bear says most Democrats will say to conservatives they are independent. Remember their father of lies. So we have that problem in or at least where I live, we have that problem of liberals registering as Republican to affect the primaries here. That is a huge issue. I don't know of anywhere where Republicans or conservatives register as Democrats to affect their primaries.
Yeah, I mean that could be a way.
Supposedly, Tim Keller.
That could be like a way
did that in New York.
Maybe influence the black community and just get. If you ran a black conservative as a Democrat against Brandon Scott in Baltimore, maybe, just maybe, you might win a mayoral race and be able to fix a major city.
Yeah, that seems like a much, a better strategy.
But I mean, you basically have to be Malcolm X on the streets and Thomas Sowell like in the office. You basically got to go Malcolm X on the street.
I think that's too hardcore of a needle to thread because I don't think that's really doable. Because at the end of the day, I think it's old boomerish people that drive the Democrat primaries. So I don't know. It's very unlikely. No. And I think the young single women are the followers. They're not the drivers, because young single women in 2020 weren't voting. They were probably pushing Pete Buttigieg. They were probably pushing that in the Iowa caucus for the Democrats, or they were pushing Bernie Sanders. But they fell in line when they ordered to code Order 66 on Joe Biden. Eminem says from the Twitter sphere, Larry Elder tried that for Cali gubernatorial race, didn't work out.
Well, he didn't run as a Democrat. He ran as a libertarian Republican.
He did so bad there, and he basically ruined it for the other candidates because he made it all about him. He sabotaged, and he's not the only one, or he's not the only reason that it failed, but he is definitely one of the main reasons that it failed, was because that race stopped being about Gavin Newsom and then started being about how he's being called the black face of white supremacy. He made that race about himself, and it tanked because of that. I don't even know if he even come in first place.
I don't know. It's been too long.
The contenders.
It's been too long.
But yeah, that was terrible.
Actually, technically, I think Newsom would have.
And then he pretended to run for president, and the same people who astroturfed him in his gubernatorial campaign completely forgot about him when he was running for president.
But I mean, I'm talking about actually just running a conservative as a Democrat with a D next to their name. You know,
yeah, I think that would be far more effective.
And just completely, infiltrate and then just betray the base. And then if you actually govern well, the people will reward you.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
I think
that would be the strategy. And if they don't, then that really says something about their community.
Yeah, I think that's a better way to go, because running as independent doesn't work, and then running as Republican doesn't really work. I mean, some people can't really get away with that, like Kim Klacik here in Maryland probably couldn't get away with that at this point.
No, but
I don't think she could have. She could not have started there though, because the seats for Congress have only started opening up because Doug Ruppersberger is retiring, Sarbanes is retiring. Ben Cardin just retired, and McCulkey retired. So a lot of Maryland Democrats have retired. So this would have been a more prime opportunity now. But nonetheless, for a Kim Klacik type figure to have infiltrated the Democrat Party. But, not everyone can, put on the act, but I think it would work better at a local level for sure. But, back to the Larry Elder point, because this relates to conservatism as well. And I have a theory that the Conservative Inc., they astroturfed his gubernatorial campaign. They buried his presidential campaign. He did not get any coverage.
I mean, you can't bury what wasn't even on the ground. I mean,
it wasn't a serious campaign. It was never a serious campaign, but was his gubernatorial campaign ever serious? Maybe. But here's the thing. They didn't interview him. He didn't get interviews. So, or not major interviews. He didn't do the circuit like Vivek Ramaswamy did. And I think the reason why is if he elevates his profile by running for president, the industry is not going to allow him to do that, because at the end of the day, he's a competitor. He's a direct competitor. You're not just going to elevate his vanity campaign for president. And that's why the conservative industry did not even let him touch the light of day for his presidential campaign, which was never a serious campaign, because at the end of the day, he's a radio host based in California. I live on the other side of the country, and like every other conservative, I'm asking, who is this guy?
Yeah, and he's also libertarian, so.
And yeah, that's even worse, because I know how libertarians work. They will, knife you on the, on anything related to a lot of what we've talked about already tonight, the transgender.
Well, and again, go back to our live stream 2 weeks ago. Libertarians are the allies of the neocons. They provide the intellectual diversity so that the paleocons can still be kicked out of the party, and you can have neocons and libertarians fighting it out. And that's your movement.
Big question here. U.S. Senate in Maryland, Ficker or Hogan? Ficker.
I mean, I'm
going Robin Ficker.
I'm not planning on voting in the primary just because it's not worth my time. And there's no one on the ballot. So,
do you live in 6?
No, I'm still registered in 3.
Oh, okay. Bernie Flowers.
No, yeah, but
I like Bernie. So, yeah, I know these people, by the way. I've met Robin Ficker. He has a booming voice and he has money. Like I've seen his ads on YouTube and stuff. This guy has money to, run every single campaign cycle. This guy is running for some office. Booming voice. I don't think he's super serious. But and I don't
Keep in
think
mind, you're
Robin
not
Ficker
getting
understands what time it is, but he's not unconscionable to vote for. I would never vote for Larry Hogan.
Larry Hogan's another Mitt Romney. It's not worth your time. There's no issue that he will actually stand up for you on. He actually supported the Biden immigration bill. He would be for fiscal, I guess, recklessness. He would be passing every spending bill that comes through Congress. He wouldn't fight on the debt at all. So that's two issues. He's not a lock on a SCOTUS pick. He'd probably be closer to a Suzanne Collins. So if we need a good Supreme Court justice, you can't, as of right now, count him as a vote. So, and again, he didn't fight against the tranny stuff even as governor.
He passed a law.
Yeah, he passed a law that allows, I guess,
schools
therapy
to transgender kids without the parents knowing.
Yes.
Larry Hogan signed that law.
And again, his own party called this exact, and his own party actually said that, hey, this is going to lead to transgendering kids at school, and he still signed the law anyway.
Yeah, so never voting for that guy. Not again. I have voted for him in the past, though. But that was different. He wasn't as bad then. But the guy has gotten worse with time. So, but yet that is also why conservatism is dead. I stand in the minority of Republicans on the right who say I don't believe we should vote for Hogan ever. But you know how many of my contemporaries, my colleagues in the local active political scene are saying, I'm going to vote for Hogan anyway.
I mean, you're not getting anything. Like, if you can convincingly make the argument that there's at least one issue out there he would actually be conservative on, that he won't knife you in the front for, I'm open to the case. But I just named 3 issues that he won't actually.
I got this. Israel.
Oh.
Israel.
Okay.
Israel.
Yeah. I mean, David Trone would do the exact same thing.
Well, like, there's your issues that, these people would agree with Hogan on, is right there.
Yeah.
And that's assuming they don't, support Ukraine spending, which I know some of the,
and Hogan would.
I know, again, when the fight was thickest, I was against Ukraine the entire time, but that was not the majority opinion. I was amazed by how many people, woke up to that. I don't know how long it took for people to wake up to the Ukraine thing, but still much too long.
2 years, right?
It takes about 2 years it takes about 19 to 21 months for the truth to have its day in the United States. I've said that in the past, but it is most certainly true. Here's my hot take regarding Blaze TV. And I have done some research in preparation for this hot take, but it needs to be said. Blaze TV has a major problem, in my opinion, and the name of that problem is Alex Stein. I think they need to cancel and fire Alex Stein. At the very minimum, they are not going to renew his contract. He is done after he washes out of the Blaze. I would bet hardcore money on that they are not going to renew his contract. I don't think the Blaze wanted to renew Steven Crowder's contract because he was trying to raise the price of the brick, but they knew his audience was declining. Or maybe they knew he had baggage on him that was totally a risk and a liability to continue carrying on your platform.
Yeah, because his divorce probably would have been underway, or at least somewhat by that time, because he already had his kids, and the video the video that was released was his wife being like 8 months pregnant. That baggage.
I doubt they knew about that video.
They might have known about, well, not the video, but they might have known about something.
But I'm not judging Crowder based on that video.
No,
to be fair, I'm not gonna, I'm not going to criticize people in their marital arguments like that. I think that's unfair for people to do. Obviously, failures were made on both sides of that marriage, and she is a feminist. If you look at her Twitter account, like, she's a feminist. He married a feminist, didn't exactly go base. Maybe tried to pull the Andrew Tate thing later in marriage, and that didn't fix anything. But I don't, not my place to weigh in on that. With that said, I think the Blaze needs to fire Alex Stein, because he's an embarrassment to the Blaze, their channel, their content.
Well, what is instigating this? I'm kind of shocked. It's like, okay, we've talked about Alex Stein being a waste of
I
time
have what
before.
is the impetus for this, but I want to set it up first. So take a look at this channel. It is 225,000 subscribers, 1.9K videos. He's the pimp on a blimp. The troll of the left fears more than any
And I
other.
believe this channel did belong to Elijah Schaefer at one point. This was
This was the channel. They co-opted this channel for what You Are Here used to be this channel.
No.
So this was the channel that had Elijah Schaefer and Sydney Watson in their show. And they basically, wiped the channel, kept the subs and all, and tried to launch Alex Stein on top of this channel. And that has not worked at all. If you look at their most popular videos, actually, these are shorts, so those don't really count. But if you look at their most popular videos, it's not exactly a good picture. Most popular live stream is like 3.
That's the latest.
Sorry, the latest. 57K. But what's odd is that this guy interviewed Tucker Carlson. Obviously, everyone knows who Tucker Carlson is. One of the biggest names in conservative media. He does an interview on Alex Stein and only gets 12,000 views.
Yeah, and meanwhile, everyone's talking about Joe Rogan with Tucker Carlson.
Well, a lot more people watch Joe Rogan, let's be fair.
Yeah,
but I have a feeling if I had Tucker Carlson on here, I might be able to come close to 12,000 views, right?
Well, especially if you clip it and Tucker Carlson talks about this.
I got to think that, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Tucker Carlson, talks about Iraq or talks about 9/11. Yeah, Tucker Carlson on 9/11 could easily get 12,000 views because he probably has a hot take on that, and I'd love to hear it.
Oh, for sure. But just think, this guy interviews Tucker Carlson and can't get 15,000 views. So Yellowmont says Alex Stein is the only thing I watch or hear about from the Blaze. Like, I wonder how, because his long form, I can't do it. The only time I've ever watched his long form, like I maybe tried in the very beginning of his show. The only time I've watched his long form was when he had that Bryson Gray, and we did the live stream with that on the calendar. And even that was like he's drumming up drama because he was basically trying to do what Elijah Schaefer did back in the day.
Well, incidentally, Elijah Schaefer just walked into drama like a wealthy man finds women that are attracted to him. He just found a way to create drama.
Okay. Yellowmouth clarifies. I never said I watched his long form. His long form is terrible. I have not extended an invite to Tucker Carlson. I just don't think I'm at that level to even approach him. But I have Abolitionist Rising on the queue.
And we had Shampoo Soros.
Soros, yeah.
Charles Hayward.
Yeah, yep. So, I mean, the Blaze, right, said Fred, the Blaze is full of AstroTurf Zio stuff. There's no longer an audience for that.
Apparently there is, because someone's watching Mark Levin. Someone's listening to Glenn Beck.
I think I like the Blaze as a platform. I think they have at least the other side of that. I mean, the Daily Wire has Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh, doubled down on his previous take on Greg Abbott today. So they have that going on. But Alex Stein, again, his most viewed long form has about 27,000 views. So, if I were to scroll down and find his, which one would actually count as long form, I mean, does 48,000 views on a 21-minute video count as long form? I think that's a little, I don't know. That's very borderline, but Mark Dice, 23,000 views, 32
And again,
minutes.
Mark Dice gets 100 to 200,000 views a video.
So anything longer than a half hour, and then Tucker Carlson is down there with where is he? Because I'm almost there. 12,000 views, full interview. Tucker Carlson, unfiltered on conspiracy theories. With that type of headline, you can't get. You barely get more than your regular show. So yeah, I mean, Yellowmoth's point. Again, they did take over the You Are Here channel, and that really hurt his algorithm. But at the end of the day,
I mean, it's been a year.
They could have recovered the algorithm, but at the end of the day, the content sucks. And you have the one, so he has the one guy who recurrently plays his wife's boyfriend, and it's just at this point, it's not really a character, or he's basically playing a caricature of his own caricature, is what the show has become. And Elite also points out, and this is why I like The Blaze overall. To be fair, Beck, he's in. I do want to clarify. Glenn Beck is not in charge of The Blaze. Gaston Mooney's the president of The Blaze. There's other people in charge, but Glenn Beck is one of the main talents at The Blaze.
I mean, he's essentially the Ben Shapiro.
He might also be one of the main owners of The Blaze, but he's not in charge of The Blaze.
Well, yes and no. Insofar as Ben Shapiro is not the one getting people fired, but Ben Shapiro makes the call. Someone's having a call.
So Aaron McIntyre is worth celebrating. Jason Whitlock, he's kind of recovered a little bit in my mind, because Jason Whitlock was pretty good, and then you're focusing too much on women's basketball, and now he's kind of I like.
He's had a great week. He had a great week.
I loved when he went after Patrick Bet-David. I thought that was good. So we need more content like that. Aaron can't criticize the Zogs though, really.
Yes and no. I think he tiptoes around.
I don't know. I don't see that on Twitter where he's unwilling to do that. So
I think he tiptoes around it because obviously Glenn Beck will give him the call if he goes too hard on it. But obviously he's friends and affiliated with those that do, and he doesn't do like Mark Dice is a noticer, obviously, but he does the Jew-Gino distinction. And if you watch some of his latest videos, he's actually treading over the line more than he probably has in most of his videos. So these people do notice. They just, I mean, obviously they toe the line, but they do point you in that direction.
So Yellowmoth asks, what's your opinion on Patrick Bet-Davis? I haven't watched him. See, I guess my problem is he's a rich guy who kind of astroturfed himself into conservative media. I had never heard of him until he offered Tucker Carlson a 9-figure deal with partial ownership to join Valuetainment. So I hadn't heard of him until that. Although I think I might have heard of him when his controversy with Jason Whitlock began, when he tried to get Jason Whitlock on as what Jason Whitlock would recently describe as a mandingo fight on his show, because that's, and Jason Whitlock backed out of his show for that. So apparently I forgot his name when that happened, but I hadn't heard of him until until he tried to offer Tucker Carlson a thing. But
I mean, he's
kind of seems a little scammy.
I mean, that's supposedly how he made his money, was insurance. I mean, informally, an insurance pyramid scheme. That's supposedly how he made his money. I'm not entirely sure on that, but when people talk about him being a scammer and a multi-level marketing, insurance guy, I mean, that's basically a fancy word for a pyramid scheme. No,
multi-level marketing is worse.
Well, yeah,
because the return on Bernie Madoff was 90%.
He just literally paid out people deposits from a bank account,
Well,
from
he
like a
just
checking account.
he had so much money, he didn't know what to do with it. Like, he got himself a
he
nice
had-
penthouse,
He had a lot of
some
money.
nice
He didn't
cars.
do anything with it.
Yeah, he just kept the money in a pile. So, like, when they caught Bernie Madoff, they could at least give people their money back and allocate it or something. With multi-level marketing, you basically have to keep buying your own product to keep your own prestige. It's even worse. The return on investment is far worse in multi-level marketing than a pyramid scheme.
Well, except you get other suckers to.
Yes, and then you pressure your friends into it. It's way worse, and Mormons are big on it, by the way. So this is how the evangelicals will reach the Mormons and evangelize the Mormons. We will not fall for pyramid schemes, and we will be there for the Mormons to give them the gospel when they do, and preach against the sin of multi-level marketing schemes. So, firearm insurance. By the way, firearm insurance is a pyramid scheme. Okay. That is that what he's been involved in? So
I don't know. I don't know his background. To me, he's just kind of like a not Joe Rogan that does a lot of Joe Rogan style content. And the same thing would go with Lex Friedman. It's like, I'm sorry, you got too many subscribers for me. Which means you're too mainstream.
So here's the clip of why I brought Alex Stein into it. I have saved it for this moment. Are you ready for the cringe of all cringe? The cringiest thing I'm going to show you tonight.
Laura Loomer.
That is not Laura Loomer.
That's not Laura Loomer.
That is not Laura Loomer. Blair White, hit the wall hard.
Okay. If I'm making that mistake. Okay.
You thought that was Laura Loomer? No, you're not the only one, though. I saw that in the comment section.
Okay, I'm off the hook.
You are off the hook because the comment sections made the same joke, but Laura Loomer is like, wow. Physiognomy check. Undefeated. But listen to this. You will cringe hard.
I had to call you out. Now I have to call out Blair. Blair posted a picture where Blair, there's no way you have a wiener in that bikini.
Which picture?
And one of these pictures, but I'm saying you say you do, but then I realized, and I did my little detective, you have to kind of put your testes up because the penis is flaccid.
Not kind of.
You do. We did not plan this, but Blair's going to teach me how to do a live tucking demonstration. This is my woman's bikini bottom.
Okay. First of all, this needs to be pulled up way higher. You need some pressure on the nuts.
Okay, that is hurting. So what do?
You thought I was gonna feel good?
No, I guess I didn't. Is that good?
I mean, you have camel balls, not necessarily a camel toe.
This is your fault, Blair. You really need to apologize.
Yeah. I need to repent for this. This is of the devil.
I mean, the last part is true, but
yeah, the last part was very true.
Yeah.
Wow. Is that the worst thing you've seen all week?
I mean, I think it's certainly amongst the gayer things I've seen. And we watched the Jubilee video earlier in the stream.
I saved the worst for last.
So
that is Alex Stein trying to learn how to tuck.
The guy that does like actual costumes for his
performance, yeah.
Yeah. His videos, his trolling videos at the city councils is
like, it's bad enough that no one is watching this. And I got this off of Telegram, and I'm not going to say what Telegram I got this off of, but I found this on Telegram, and it's Alex Stein's show, obviously. I couldn't even find it on his YouTube channel, actually, when I looked. So I decided to tweet it. And I tweeted my commentary. It's like, yeah, this is bad. The Blaze needs to cancel Alex Stein. Like, his show is already an embarrassment, but this is, you can't keep doing this. Like, your show is already bad, but wow. Now you're just promoting degeneracy, just flagrantly promoting degeneracy.
Well, I'm at least glad
they need to fire him.
I'm at least glad he wasn't like, it could have been gayer. Like, he could have not had like boxers or compression shorts on.
I'm very glad that he had that, but
yeah,
let's be real. If it weren't for, YouTube algorithms, he probably wouldn't have. but and YouTube might not have even demonetized that content because educational or they've actually relaxed the nudity guidelines on YouTube a little bit.
Yeah, I've noticed the thumbnails.
So they also changed a lot of stuff that I wasn't sure. With the recent premiere that I did with the interview, I'm like, that's got to be like limited monetization, but on what category am I going to limit its monetization? We're not exploiting war here or tragedy. So I went with the hateful, derogatory content one. But anyway, this live stream is going to get limited in its monetization afterwards. 100% bet on it. Yalamal says, that's a man, baby. Which is like the only funny line in Austin Powers, to be honest. I don't really like Austin Powers. I don't think SNL concepts make good movies, but that's just me. And yes, I've seen multiple attempts at doing it, but let's see. Laura Loomer has had enough surgery that she looks like, a troon. Yep, that is definitely true. She looks rough. So it's... Right said Fred said the format is just dead. No young people want a late night show format. What do you think about that?
Yes and no. I mean, I'm not going to say that the standard format works, but to some extent, can you not say that having eccentric guests as the primary basis for your show? That's essentially what Joe Rogan has done. That's what Lex Friedman and Patrick Bet Davis has done. They're essentially taking that late night-esque format and just redoing it for YouTube. So yes, late night TV itself is dead, but that jovial interview style is still living on. I don't think that's gone. Like, you're not getting like the old 60 minutes. Like, people aren't doing 60 minutes style interviews as much as they're doing more late night TV style interviews.
Or cable news style. But in terms of like the Blaze also has what's that show?
A Normal World.
Normal World, the one I was thinking of. So Normal World also tried to do, is basically one of the replacements for Steven Crowder. They replaced Steven Crowder with Alex Stein and Normal World. Normal World, I just also think is a massive fail when it comes to long form content.
Still better than Alex Stein.
Nothing is as bad as that. And the views are really bad there anyway. They're not going to renew his contract. And I honestly think they should take a morality clause and cancel him now. Because you're just doing that. I don't think the late night format is... I think the late night format worked when Steven Crowder was still doing that in 2019. Obviously, we're like 5 years almost removed from that. But Steven Crowder, I think his show started to fall apart when he wanted to do a daily show. And he wasn't putting in the work for that. You're already putting in a lot of work for your, segment, periodically throughout the week. And then you did a big show on Thursday. This is ironically what Evangelical Dark Web is doing, except, I pre-recorded an interview earlier this week. But that's ironically what we're doing. Short, long. Because the format works. It doesn't tire you out. It doesn't tire the audience out. In my opinion. So, you can comment if you're tired. But I just think it works. If you interview... Firmus and Backler says if you interview Diane Bongino online, it could work in that format. And I guess that's the late night format or the jovial thing. And then Yelmoff agrees that Crowder didn't have the chops for daily. Also doesn't hurt that you're like 20 to 40 minutes late, regularly on your own show. Like, how do you do that? At 10 a.m., like people are going to notice that your 10 a.m. means like 10:20. So that doesn't work. We had a lot of cringe to go through tonight. I'll do a last call for questions as we're going to wrap it up.
Oh, I did want to get your thoughts. What are your thoughts on the whole woke on the right? Because it seems like there is a rising James Lindsay political philosophy that's happening on the right as far as the woke versus that the right wing is becoming as woke on the left wing. And again, it goes back to the whole Republicans hate their base. Like, you've seen this, right?
Yes, I've seen them try to label, the most right-wing people as woke because, first of all, they believe it's okay to be white, which, gee, you were agreeing that with that point, 3 years ago. You were agreeing with that point. Now it's controversial because, people are still saying it's okay to be white. Otherwise, do they really want to go down that road? Do they realize that they're the liberals and how liberalism led to where they are? They're not going to win that issue. They're not going to win the fight as long as it's about wokeness. Because at the end of the day, where did wokeness come from? First of all, it came from liberalism. Then it came from the Frankfurt School. And what was the Frankfurt School? So at the end of the day, you're not going to win that. You're not going to win on that terrain. I don't think they're going to win on that terrain. That's a stupid fight for them to pick. Because at the end of the day, what the messaging that I've been doing is that these are people who would not go woke for black people, but will go woke for Israel. And black people are going to notice that. Hispanics are going to notice that. White people are going to notice that. They will go woke for Israel. They will not go woke for you or you or you.
Yeah, but it is fascinating to see that we talk about James Lindsay being the enemy of the, the church villain of the year for 2023, and now he's actually getting his tentacles in the broader conservative movement,
and that's an embarrassment. And Charlie Kirk, you got to take some accountability for that. Moms for Liberty. When your organizational leaders are done having threesomes, y'all got to take some responsibility for that. So. Alrighty. Woke is just anti-white antagonism. In one sense, yes, but woke is just a catch-all for social justice, cultural Marxism. So a lot of that is anti-white, but a lot of it's also feminist. A lot of it's also, the anti-Semitism crowd. Like that's still, you're using oppressor-victim dynamic to coddle Israel. So that's why it's woke. And you're calling out, anti-Semitic is a liberal buzzword and always has been. So I think we can win because we have the consistency on this issue. That is terrible general definition of woke. I hope I just gave that with the, social justice, cultural Marxism.
Now, the leftist will say that it's about double consciousness, which basically just means you have two planks in your own eye and you're pointing out the speck in your neighbor's. So, instead we're raising the bar on the Sermon on the Mount. Instead of one plank, it's two planks. That's essentially what it means.
But I just think conservatism is largely dead. I don't think Trump is necessarily helping out here.
So here's my hot take on Trump. I think Trump is basically trying to keep Humpty Dumpty together to get his butt over the finish line.
I don't think it's working.
It's not. And obviously I think he's making critical errors with that's the whole abortion stance.
He's come out as a pro-abortion. He's come out as a neocon in the month of April.
But is he doing that because he actually favors the $95 billion bill? Or is he doing that because it's like, oh crap, we could lose the House. I might need that speaker to keep his job. Like, again, if he sacks Mike Johnson on his, he's trying to keep Humpty Dumpty together, but Humpty Dumpty's already fallen apart.
I just think that's a terrible mentality because remember when Georgia had the runoffs in 2021 and what the Republicans did before that hand was delay and fight over the stimmies.
Yeah.
The post-Christmas stimmies. Same energy. You don't fight against the people getting their money right before a popular election. Stupid move. You also don't run terrible candidates in said election, but I digress. But that's what they did. And same energy as we're going to fight Trump, giving the papal blessing on the Ukraine spending because he thinks that issue, if the Republicans sack Ukraine, they're going to get costed in the midterms. Like, no way. You just sent a message. Your fight for conservatism just sent a message to the voters that they don't matter. So,
well, I'm just wondering, is the coalition so broken that Trump is basically in desperation mode trying to keep something together Because again, if it falls apart, he can't win the election in November. So he's doing these desperation moves to keep a broken glass together. I mean, there's a lot of metaphors you can use about trying to keep something that's broken together, and it's just a disaster. And
I mean, but who's also part of the reason why it's broken in the first place? It's like trying to be the hero when you created the problem, which is kind of like a kids TV series, kids superhero TV series. Like, the kid creates a problem and then they save the day from the problem that they created. Like, yeah, I don't know if that's going to work because, this is real life. I really like what the elite said here. Woke right is just what idiots who believe in neutral government myth call right-wingers who don't hold to that myth and actually want a government to promote right-wing values and morals. Because again, we recognize that institutions cannot really be neutral, or neutrality just is not a long-term position to hold. So that's a very astute observation. 100% agree. Let's catch up on some questions. I saw Eminem's question and kind of missed it at the time. When did the decision to push Blair White and Dave Rubin into the conservative forefront happen? A long time ago, actually.
Yeah, I know they've been around.
Stephen Crowder was pushing Blair White for years.
Yeah, so he would always say that he passes, but let's just
no, that's a lie. You saw.
I made the Laura Loomer comparison. If that's what goes for passing,
do not make me pull up that video again.
I concede.
That hit a wall.
If Laura Loomer is passing for a woman, okay. I concede. I'll give the argument.
Laura Loomer's like maybe 32. She's not old.
Well, according to the red pill community, she is.
So, yeah. And Laura Loomer also says she doesn't want to have children in this world. So, yep.
Probably for the best.
Unfortunately, but yes. And that was back in the IW.
I believe that's the
intellectual dark web.
That would be the rise of Dave Rubin on the right, would be that.
I don't get why Dave Rubin is on the right, because again, he left the left when transvestites became their priority group over homosexuals. It's literally that petty, in my opinion. So that seems to be all we got for tonight.
Point that out. I mean, this is kind of my point, as if the MAGA base and the Warhawks can't agree the parties. That's kind of my point, basically, that Trump is
right. So therefore we have to, spend $95 billion overseas to keep the party together. That's not worth it.
But again, if Trump, forsakes Israel, then
he's going to lose the mandate of heaven, as Pat Robertson would say. Again. So that being said, if you like this kind of content, subscribe to the channel, to the podcast. If you are new, Evangelical Dark Web is a Christian news gathering commentary ministry. We have a Patreon-like system that you can join, get more access to more content. I got some bonus content coming up. Because I'm kind of getting those written on the weekend and stuff. So some bonus content coming up. I did a lot of bonus content this week, so a lot of stuff coming up. With that said, book coming out, more information on that, hopefully by the next stream. But until then, stay based, Christ is King, and we will catch you.